You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 224 of Arsenal Pass. This week on the pod, we are talking all things Guardian Mastery Pack as we get our first look at a week of previews. This has been preview week for Guardian Mastery Pack. I was saying this to Pankaj before, I keep calling it Mastery Pack Guardian because it feels like it should be like, this is the Mastery Pack series, it's the Guardian edition. But anyway, I digress. Pankaj, how are you?
I'm alright. I'm back in the States, so my video's back on for YouTube watchers. Hello. And every single time I travel like between countries, I will bring up to you that, oh yeah, I'm still, recovering from my jet lag, and you'll be like, what the heck is jet lag?
Never heard of it.
So it's a conversation we have every single time. But yeah, that's happening. A little bit sleepy. I've been drinking caffeine every day, which I don't normally do. But yeah, that's been me since Singapore, I guess. How have you been?
I've been good. Did you feel like you got a bit of a break at the end? Did you get to feel like you've come back? I know you said you're tired from jet lag, but this is a longer maybe holiday than you would usually take for these events.
Yeah, I think I'm back in the swing of things. I landed, it's currently Wednesday evening that we're recording, and I landed on Sunday. I'd say I'm back in the swing of things.
Nice.
I just went into work on Monday, and it's been kind of went directly straight knee deep into work stuff, and then I feel like I've, aside from the body clock thing, I feel like I'm back in the thick of things. And actually on the flesh and blood side as well, because I am playing Kansas and I am spiraling because I don't know what deck I want to play. So that's been happening kind of like every evening. I've been trying to get some games in, just trying all sorts of stuff. Hayden, I went so far as to even trying Jarl because I was like, is there an angle here to beat Slippy and Gravy as Jarl? Didn't find it, so I'm digging.
I mean, I think there's an angle, but I don't think it's a good angle.
So hear me out. The reason why I was thinking of Jarl, and it's not because I want to blow up the compass and fatigue them. This is not the sort of strategy I like to play anyway.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Channel Oblique Expanse.
Yeah. I remember you telling me
because
about that.
so many of Gravy's turns kind of really involve them drawing a million cards, right? Revealing cards off the top and everything. I was like, if you put them on the CBE and on the CLF, it does feel like you have 6 channels that tell them they can't play the game. The problem is that they cannot play the game for those 12 turns, and you still can't kill them, and then you die anyway.
Yeah, you have to be able to kill them.
I was like, damn.
And the problem is Jarl has to go up so much to be able to keep, what I found playing Jarl, frustratingly, is your resource space is stretched in so many ways. It's like, oh, if I want to be able to keep these channels around, I all of a sudden have to be playing cards that don't proactively kill my opponent because they're all these ice cards. They just, the synergies just don't quite exist. It's like, oh, good, now I have these Winter's Bites and these Winter's Grasps in my deck, which don't do anything to pressure my opponent when they're not being pitched to keep my channels around. So it's like, I need to draw really well, or, it didn't work for me.
Yeah. And speaking of anti-synergy, when you put CBE on the field, your best card, or one of your best cards, which is Oakenold, is just turned off. So you can't even... So, yeah, basically they might be on the CLF or CBE, they might just play one ally from hand and pass it over to you, and then you're just being there you have to deal with the ally anyway, and it's like, you still just lose. Jarl wasn't it, and I'm trying to find something else.
Yeah, I think if you...
How's your week been? Oh, yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think if you're going to run that strategy, I do genuinely think the blow up the compass strategy is the strategy. I'm not particularly a fan of that strategy. It's not the sort of game I want to play, but I know someone, another Hayden in our testing group, Canadian Hayden, was running that strategy at PT.
Yeah, I reached out to him when I in my spiral of what to play in Kansas. I reached out to him. I was like, "Yo, I know you played Jarl at the PT. I know
because he lives locally
in your
to you, right?"
Yes, he moved to Seattle,
right. And
also he told me internally in your testing he had a very positive win rate into Gravies, and we're talking about like Tariq Patel level Gravies. I think his record was 7-2 or 11-2 into internal Gravies or something. I don't remember, but it was ridiculously positive. So I asked him, I was like, bro, can you teach me this thing? And I don't know.
I mean, my week's been good. I've definitely been playing some Flesh and Blood. I am also playing a calling next weekend, but it is, well, hopefully I'm not playing Classic Constructed. There is a Classic Constructed calling on day 2, but there's a double header calling. Day 1 is Welcome to Wraith Sealed, with day 2 Welcome to Wraith Draft. If not, then it's a constructed calling. But I'm hoping to obviously day 2. I've been playing a bit of Welcome to Wraith Sealed, revisiting that for the first time for Sealed. 5 years, I guess. 4 plus years for Welcome to Wraith Sealed.
Yeah. The welcome, when it was Farewell to Welcome
draft,
to Wraith,
though.
that was all draft.
That was all
right?
draft.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So draft 3.5, 4 years ago now at this point. I think it was shortly after PT 1 or 2 was the farewell events. So that's going back 3, nearly 4 years ago. And then Sealed, 5 plus years ago actually for playing Sealed. So anyway, pleasantly surprised by the format. I think it is very interesting and very fun, and glad to be returning to playing some Welcome to Wraith Limited, because I don't know, man, they just kind of nailed it out of the box, like first try, which is kind of insane. And I think it clearly a testament to just the success that Flesh and Blood has then gone on to have set after set, and as it's grown through its life cycles. But yeah, it just feels like playing Flesh and Blood, man. It just feels like playing Flesh and Blood. It feels similar to playing, a simplified version of High Seas or Heavy Hitters in many ways. It's been good.
Yeah, feels like the game we fell in love with. Question: they did implement the 30 card limit, right, for this? That sounds awesome. How's that felt?
I think it's better.
Has it felt very different? I mean, I can imagine it's definitely better.
It feels very different. Yeah, it does feel very different. I think it feels better. So, yeah, it's good. I mean, I played a handful of games so far. Hopefully, you get a chance to play some more. Hopefully, you get a chance to do a draft or 2 for Welcome to Wraith. But yeah.
And speaking of sealed changes, is it 6 packs or 8 packs?
Still 6, because they're 15 card packs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if it was 8 packs, that'd be pretty insane. So I think it's good they keep it to 6. But yeah, wish me luck next weekend in opening a Crippling Crush or something, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, good luck. No, I mean,
tick plating.
Welcome to Wraith. Are there higher chase? There's no way tech plating is the biggest chase card. No, dude, you'll open a Heart of Fyendal.
No, it's unlimited anyway for sealed. Well, I just want the one that's going to get me to day 2. So give me that tick play.
Oh, right, because you can play legendaries.
Yeah.
Oh my
Exactly.
god, I forgot. actually, I'm not entirely sure if 8 packs would be that, I don't know, like too busted or something, because that was also back in the day where there were a lot more yellows in the packs, right? I think a reason, like one big change in sealed and limited that we've seen in recent sets is they have changed the print runs with number of yellows a lot smaller than number of reds and blues. Whereas back then it's still a lot of yellows, so you can have 8 packs. I feel like that might still be a totally fine format.
I think it means that it's too easy to play Bravo in every sealed pool and just swing your Anathos, because you get enough like blues and 3 block blues if you do that. So I think 6 packs is good. I think forcing people to play yellows actually in Welcome to Wraith is quite interesting, because some of the yellows have really interesting implications. So I think it's good. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to hopefully getting some drafts. Cool. I mean, I came back from PT last Sunday, I actually came off the flight and went straight to work on the Monday, which I actually like doing, because then it means that I just work the day, go home, and then get back on a normal sleeping pattern, which is kind of nice. And then, the week was kind of crazy. We recorded early that week, and now it's another week later. And then, next Thursday, I fly out to Auckland for the calling. So things happening very quickly.
Good luck. Hope
Likewise.
to see you in top 8. Do you know which one is being streamed? Is it the limited one or the Classic Constructed?
I assume it's the Classic Constructed.
Probably.
Yeah.
The last time there was a doubleheader like this, they streamed the Classic Constructed, even though it was...
I think they should stream the Welcome
It was like
to
the
Wraith,
release
though.
of some set. Yeah.
I think they should stream the Welcome to Wraith limited format, though.
I think they will get more viewers if they stream the Classic Constructed.
Hear me out. I think they should do both. I think they should do the day 1 sealed, and then do Classic Constructed after that.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be a stream day 1 for sure.
I'm not sure if there is. I think they're only doing it for the Classic Constructed, because it's a Friday start.
Yeah, I thought there was a stream on Friday the
maybe.
last time there was a doubleheader calling. I might be making that up. I don't fully remember.
Let's have a look. Yeah. Wonder if we can find out.
Yeah. I am surprised, coming back to the legendary conversation, like since they changed the 30 card limit and stuff, like they're clearly willing to retroactively apply their learnings from limited to like this older set. I'm surprised legendaries aren't like disallowed. I guess
It's in the rarity slot, so you kind of have to.
Yeah, it would mess. It would straight up. They'd be like, "Oh, that person straight up loses an equipment slot if they open a list."
Yeah, I think you've got to.
I guess.
So yeah, you just take what you get. It's not perfect, right? Like there's power spikes, there's these things, but it'll certainly be interesting. I was trying to see if I could find anything about the stream, but no specifics. We'll find out.
Yeah. Maybe it's like if you show them, you open a legendary freaking tech plating, you can get an iron rod there or something. I don't know. that's probably too clunky. But I don't know.
That's fine. It's fine. You just you get the upgrade. You get the iron rod plus.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, because that's all it is. Yes, it's just iron.
Well,
rod plus.
I mean they're pretty good, but Brave Forge braces in particular. Anyway, should we move on?
Yeah. Yes, let's move on to the news. Cool. One big piece of news, which we didn't cover last week because we recorded early, and this news came out a little bit after that, which did get a lot of discourse, shall we say, in the community, was a change to ProQuests, which is once you win a ProQuest in a season, you can no longer play in any other ProQuest that season, which it caused a lot of discussion around this topic. Did you have any thoughts when you first saw this news? Or the discourse surrounding it?
I think you should go first. I think you're generally more in tune with the discourse around some of these things than I am. So I reckon you maybe you give me the little bit of lay of land of some of the discourse, and then you give me your thoughts. I'll give you mine.
The lay of the land was that the discourse seemed split. There were lots of players very upset, and there were lots of players that were like, "This is a good thing." I was personally a little bit surprised by either side, to be honest. I was just like, I was like when I first read the news, I was like, okay, interesting. Like, I didn't think it was a big deal until I started seeing all the discourse. I was like, people have some really strong thoughts about this. And I think what I could gather from listening to other content creators talk about this and whatever discourse I could pick up on, I think it is people's reaction to this is very, very personal in that it's obviously very dictated by how they engage with ProQuest season, which obviously makes a lot of sense, right? Like, what else would you be reacting to? And so I think why I didn't feel like it's a big deal is because I sort of already self-implemented this for myself, especially as someone who doesn't even play in like the big events. I kind of have like a little goal I try and do every season where like, I'll try and win one gold foil, but once I win that one gold foil, I cancel all my PQ any other PQ entries that I've bought, I cancel them. I get them refunded because I'm okay. I already got my one gold foil for the season. I'm like, let other people get it.
Yeah.
So I kind of was already like doing that. So when I read this news, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I was kind of already doing this. Whereas for other people, where they're like, the sort of person that wants to go play every single ProQuest regardless of what they've won, or there's some people who are unhappy with the same spike winning their ProQuest every week, and they're actually trying to qualify. So it's like, other people obviously engage differently, and there were different responses based on the way they engage with ProQuest season, which obviously made a lot of sense. So me personally, I was like, for me, I was like, okay, interesting. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
My only small gripe in terms, again, how I personally engage with ProQuest season is that it probably makes it a little tougher to book beforehand if you need to travel out. So for example, me and my locals, sometimes we'll drive down to Portland for a double header, right? Like there'll be there'll be one Saturday, one Sunday. And we book our accommodation beforehand, obviously, because you don't want to pay an arm and a leg for that. And if one of us wins a ProQuest the week before, but we've already, told everyone we'll be part of the accommodation and everything, like that whole thing could be annoying. Also, if you add the doubleheader itself and one of you wins on the Saturday, then that person just needs to just sit there like all of Sunday. So that kind of stuff, I could see it being a little bit annoying, but I do feel like it's like, I don't know how often it's really going to happen for it to be a very, very, for it to be, I don't know, as blown up as it seemed to be during the community discourse.
I mean, I guess the rebuttal to what you just said that people might say, I'm not saying I'm saying this, but people might sort of come back to you on is probably quite reasonably niche on the booking advanced accommodation, and then it being like because a lot of people are generally playing. I know in the US, obviously people could drive and they travel a lot more, but I think for a lot of other parts of the world, traveling to ProQuest is not a big thing, and for a lot of players, it's not. It's very. I think certain groups of players have traditionally done that, grinders, things like that. on the like winning of the same weekend, well, you've won one. So I don't know, go outside and enjoy the sun. I don't know, go get some food, cheer your friends on, like go get food for them. I don't know, like sleep in. I don't know. Enjoy it.
You know, it's so funny you brought that up because there's one time I actually did that. Like me and a friend had both won like the previous weekend, and so for the next weekend's ProQuest, we actually just showed up. We canceled our entry, but we showed up and we just jammed games on the side just so we could be there and like hang out with everyone as they are playing the ProQuest. And we're just jamming like Vincent versus Reinar.
Oh, so you didn't have fun? Okay, sure.
Nonsense. Yeah, we're just doing the kind of thing. But yeah, I could see it for some people. I mean, if you're the only one in the group there who won the ProQuest like on a Saturday, and then on Sunday you don't have someone else to hang out with, I could see that being a little bit annoying. But yeah, to your point, you want to peek you. I don't know.
Well, saying that, Pankaj, I'll give you my view because I'm very, very upset. I'm not. I have had the exact same view as you. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I mean, I can see that change being a reasonable change, or I could, I didn't think too much of it. I was like, yeah, that's a change for ProQuest season. They issued their reasoning. I was like, yep. I mean, I can see. I was like, I quite like playing maybe an extra ProQuest here or there to get reps in on a deck or something like that. But also at the same time, I can also just play games, elsewhere. I can go to an armory. I can jam with friends, whatever it is. So I was kind of like, yeah, sure. And then I did see some of the discourse, and yeah, I was surprised by how passionate people were about. I think I would say, firstly, the negative, like the anti side to this change, and then I would say people responded on the other side in emphatic fashion to that energy. They matched the energy, I would say, and then all of a sudden it was a classic dividing issue, which just does it need to be that way? Not really sure, but I think. For me, it was just like, yeah, okay, this is fine. I also was like quickly scrolling through some feeds and some things like that, and I was like, I wonder how many of the people who are very up in arms about this have multiple gold foils in their pocket from last ProQuest season.
Yeah, it does. That was definitely the vibe from some of the people against this.
Only some, I think. Only some. Like there was a whole range of. I had a little bit of a peruse myself as well. Whole host of reasons of why people maybe didn't feel great about this change. In terms of just wanting to play the game, for instance. Wanting to be able to play the game competitively. Maybe that's that's something that's what brings them their energy and their passion and their joy weekend over weekend is being able to play the game competitively. Completely understand that, right? But then on the flip side, you've also got the positives of getting opportunities for more people to win these ProQuests. For maybe there is this thing that happens, and I'm not going to say it happens. I don't want to go too much into specifics, but I think people who have experienced this will know what I'm talking about. Is you go to an event and there's a group of players who are maybe like your grinders of the area, and they're all a very like tight-knit group. And they kind of, almost not intentionally, I think in a lot of ways, but will operate in ways that might benefit them as a collective, or the person in their group who hasn't already got the invite, for instance. Like, 3 of them make top 8, one of them scoops their friend in the quarterfinals, and then their other friend beats you in the semifinals, and then they split the final or whatever, or scoop their friend in the final, whatever it is. And I think, look, that's part of the game. I think it's part of being with a group of friends, and I've been that person. I've done that a lot in my TCG career, I think. But I will freely admit that it is not the most positive thing in many instances, I think, and it does feel a bit. I think there's two sides of it. People say, it's a bit gatekeeping, and some other people say, well, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? And if you want to get to the Pro Tour, you should be able to beat the best players in your local scene, etc., etc. But I think that's kind of why I don't really have a massive amounts of skin in the game, is because I think I can see both sides of why this change is going to maybe be a bit frustrating for some people, and also be a massive welcome win for others. So, yeah, that's my view.
Yeah, I think the biggest argument, the argument to me which felt the most compelling, was people treating ProQuest season as just like their way to engage with the game at a competitive level, which for a lot of people it is their way of engaging it, right? I mean, honestly, the number of people who actually travel out to events versus number of people who play the game is obviously very different. I think especially in a period of time like this, it's probably time to like talk about this. I've been hearing sentiment across some of my locals, like the types who wouldn't travel out for a Pro Tour, that after US Nationals, they were like, oh, I have nothing to do until like Pro Quest season, basically. And so in that context, if you're like, oh, finally, it's Pro Quest season's here, I get to play this game at a higher level than just an armory, which I've been doing for the past 3 months since US Nationals, and then you win the first weekend, say, and then you just can't do that again, and you're just back in the, okay, I have nothing to do until whatever. To me, that was the most compelling argument for
that makes sense.
Why this change is perhaps a negative. But yeah, again, it also comes back to how many people will actually really be affected by this, right? I don't know. We'll kind of have to see how it shakes out.
I guess I resonate with that one as well. I think that's very, very fair. What I would say is, there is more battle hardens than there has been. Like LSS have made a concerted effort to put more battle hardens through competitive seasons to give people the ability to play at a higher competitive level, akin to that sort of Pro Quest or slightly above level. So those are still well within everyone's reach. And I think what people could maybe do is think, well, okay, I'm going to give it my all to do this. Maybe I win in week 1. Fine, great. What am I going to do with the rest of my time? Well, if I really want to play Flesh and Blood, is there a calling in my country I could get to, for instance? Could that be on the cards? Am I going to play locally with my group of friends and try and really help them level up to win the next Pro Quest or the Pro Quest the following, for instance? Am I then going to put it on my radar to get to a battle hardened? I think there's a lot of other. It doesn't just completely cut off your avenues to play competitive play, but in some, I will admit there'll be some specific people or specific areas where it might reduce. But I would say the discourse I saw on that particular thread was a lot smaller. Like there was a lot of maybe negative sentiment, and that was a small part of it where I was like, that's very fair. And then there's other stuff where I was like, I mean, that's just ridiculous. So your reasoning is terrible.
Yeah. Cool. If there's nothing else on that topic, should we just move on to more news?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm keen to see how this plays out, and I'm keen to see more people potentially make it to the Pro Tour, and then there's this thing that happens sometimes. I think especially maybe you're in an area where you're newer to the game, or you've played the game for a little bit. You go to your local Pro Quest, but the nearest one to you after that is 3-4 hours drive at closest, or maybe not even accessible for you. So you get this one Pro Quest a season, and or maybe 2 or 3 Pro Quests, right? Like you can't get an extra one in because you can't drive to it or whatever it is, and then you just maybe you never quite get there. You make a finals, you lose the final, and maybe there's a couple of people in your area who are very much grinders, who are very good at this game. Maybe they go off, they win a first week, second week, into the third week. You finally pick up your win, you head off to your first Pro Tour, and you realize, actually, I could put a lot more time into this game. I'm a lot better than this game than I thought I was. Put more time in, you head back, you win another Pro Quest next season, you get back to the Pro Tour, you make a placing. Like, I think we will discover some people who just haven't maybe had quite the ability to travel or play as many Pro Quests, or have lost a couple of finals here or there, get opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. And I think, for me, that's a good enough reason in and of itself, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Fair. I will say, though, I do talk about a positive of this change. I do hate it when an invite gets wasted.
Me too,
like,
massively.
That feels really bad. I mean, it's also why, like, national season, I think I told you as well, like, pretty much if I ever hit quarterfinals, I was kind of always scooping, because if I got to semis, then my invite was getting wasted, right? Because I'll be in the booth. I'll be like,
don't they drop down though
scooping to everyone?
Don't they drop down for Elo though?
Not for RTNs.
No, for Elo.
RTNs.
So however many RTN invites there are. So because US is it not capped? Is US capped? Yeah, right. So
I'm not sure.
Say you have a cap of 256 people or whatever, you get 156 through nationals invites. If you're in the Elo ranking, does it drop down? Maybe not, because you've taken the invite, and you might, if you're not ranking in Elo, the invite doesn't drop down. Right. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, I have no idea. In any case, I do hate it when invites get wasted.
Yes,
so this thing at least ensures that invites don't get wasted, which is cool.
Yes.
Because that did happen some Pro Quests where both finalists had won a Pro Quest, and then the invite is just burned, and that always, I don't know, I just didn't like that was happening.
I think that happened.
That's a possible change.
Twice at. I think that happened 3 times at mine this season, actually, where unfortunately 3 of the winners did not go. Like, one of the ones I lost to in the final, I don't think they went. another I lost to in the semi-final. I don't think. Oh, actually, I know they didn't go.
So not going is not the same as invite literally being wasted, though. Like the not going, that's gonna happen.
Oh, sure,
like, yeah,
okay.
sure. Not every winner. Not every winner is expected to. I'm not gonna be like, all right, if you win, you have to go, and
No.
otherwise
I'm
you should have conceded.
What's
or
the
something.
difference
No,
then?
I don't mean it that way. Oh, the difference is the two players that were in the finals had already won PQs before, so the invite from that ProQuest literally was like burnt. Like, because it doesn't get passed down to third. It only gets passed down to second if the first
winner doesn't go to the Pro Tour, the invite doesn't pass down either.
I suppose, but that's that's sort of being like a sort of in a hindsight thing. Oh, they didn't go, therefore the invite was.
What if they
wasted.
never
I'm
planned
talking
to
about
go?
like
What if they
literally
never planned to go?
a person. Yeah, then at that point they probably would have tried to figure out a split or whatever, right? But as my point is, it feels like someone here could have qualified via this, but literally the qualification was just gone. It's like one part of the prizing was just actually disappeared. I don't know.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. Cool. So in other news, the Arsenal Pass preview card went up. Shout out to Hayden to remembering to tweet that the day it was supposed to be sent out.
That's a good tweet.
He panic messaged me because I mean I think why don't you tell them the story?
Well, we got the opportunity to
preview
reveal another amazing preview card, and we got it sort of during the prep for Pro Tour, and so I was like, yeah, this is awesome, cool, can't wait for Mastery.
And he never told
Mastery
me, by the way.
Pack. No,
He didn't tell me this when he actually got the info.
Well, they emailed it to me
got a spoiler
directly. I
card.
don't know what to tell you. You have to take that up with Alex and the team. They email my personal email address. I don't know what to tell you about it. The Arsenal Pass is listed on the thing, and they email me, and they address it to Hayden. So that sounds like an issue that you've got to take up with some of your colleagues. That's what I'm hearing.
Sure. I mean, to clarify, I'm not saying... I'm not being like, oh, they didn't email me. I'm saying you didn't tell me after.
Yeah, I
getting
know.
the
That's
email.
my bad.
Anyway,
I'm trying to
carry on.
deflect. Clearly. So we got the card, and then I basically got back from Singapore, and then traveled immediately the following 2 days later, basically on a work trip, and then was like, what's the date today? Oh shit, we have a preview card that needs to go up today. So I messaged Pankaj and was like, right, I'm throwing up this little teaser idea, and then we're going to drop it later on. Because I thought we had a very cool card, and I was like, I wonder what people think of this. So we did a bit of a teaser on X, and then dropped it finally. And there was tons of speculation, which I loved. People were like running riot on some of the things they thought this card was when they saw it was legendary equipment and no other context. And people were like, finally we get our legendary Guardian boots and all this. And I was like, oh no, people are going to be disappointed. Or people are like, I hope it's this, or I hope it's not this. So it was fun.
I think it was a really cool way to tease the spoiler for sure. And yeah, it's anti-Guardian boots, actually, contrary to what people were trying to guess.
I was trying to workshop it as unmovable boots. What do you reckon?
Been anti-Guardian. It would have been anti-Azalea too if Azalea was still around.
Base of the Mountain was our card. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a generic equipment. Legs at Legendary has star defense value, and it says Blade Break, and when this defends, banish any number of action cards from your hand, then add them to the chain link as defending cards, and this card's defense is equal to the number of action cards defending on the active chain link. And I think this card is going to be specific. It's very much, like you say, in the set as the anti-Guardian position of the set. But I think there's some potential. It's worth noting it doesn't get around Overpower, but it does get around Dominate, which is very cool. So.
Wait, doesn't get around Overpower? Could you... Like, what happens if I banish 2 action cards from its effect? They...
I think... I don't know exactly what happens, but it doesn't work. Because you can't defend...
Oh, okay.
You can't be defended by more than 1 action card, so I guess you just can't legally do it?
Yeah.
You get rewound?
But when does it... I feel like that's a clunky way to implement.
I couldn't tell you the specifics. I'd have to look it up. Okay, but Dominate says can't be defended from hand, right? So it gets around that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can try and look up the ruling if you want while you talk. Nah,
it's fine. I'm sure we'll get it in the release notes, and then we'll just look it up and see how it works. Oh yeah, of course. Thank you to LSS for giving us a preview card as usual. It's very, very kind of them to constantly give us, banger preview cards. We had Quick Dodge Flexes and Death Threads, which Death Threads should be banned, but it was a banger of a card. And this one too. So shout out and thank you to LSS for that. Next, we have a Calling Kansas entry giveaway. We have 2 of them. One of them we'll give away on this video. So go ahead and comment honest video on YouTube. And as for the content of the comment, suggest me a deck. Like,
Please.
suggest a deck for me to play at Calling Kansas, because I'm in the spiral and I have no idea what to play. So it's a deck, and we will choose our favorite answer as the winner of the giveaway. This is the calling entry, and the second giveaway is live on our Twitter. So go check that out for how to enter that giveaway.
Yes, 100%. And what I would say is I'm gonna be the first to provide you with my opinion, my comment, Pankaj, and I'm gonna turn the tables on you, and I'm gonna suggest that you play an assassin. Whereas generally, you're always like, play this assassin, Hayden, play this assassin. I'm going to turn the tables on you and say, Pankaj, just play Arachne Slip Through the Cracks. Play an assassin.
So if I play an assassin, it would be Mario.
Don't do that.
So we'll see. If I can figure out Gravy as Mario, then I'll play Mario. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't like playing one of the most represented decks. I just don't like it because that deck has like a target on its back and stuff. I'm just like, eh.
Okay.
I'd rather find an angle into the meta than play that. But yeah, cool. That's it. That's all we have from the news. Should we move on to the Command and Cookout?
Yeah, let's do it this week. Well, first of all, Command and Cookout. If you want to get your questions in for the Command and Cookout, you can do so. You can drop them in the YouTube comments below if you are a visual watcher on the YouTube platform, or like our comments this week come from, you can drop them in the Spotify comments. If you're perhaps an audio listener on that platform, jump over to either of those if you're on a different platform, or you can email us at arsenalpassfab@gmail.com if that's your preference. If you're an Arsenal Pass patron, you can go along to our Patreon Discord. We have a Command and Cookout section there for your questions specifically, or as we have at the last few events, people have given us a few great questions. And actually, Pankaj, I thought, we do have some Spotify comments, but I thought before we got there, I've got this handwritten note from Singapore, from a question, from a listener, and I do recall this individual, but what I would say is please put your name on these when you hand them to us, because as much as I know that this was someone from Australia, I can't exactly remember who it was now, because I did get a couple of questions over the weekend. So please, if you are going to give us a nice handwritten note, make sure to put your name on it so I can make sure of who I address and call this question out to. But this is the question, Pankaj, for you. It says, "Hi Hayden, my podcast co-host has started using terrible nicknames for cards. What should I do?"
You know what's so funny? I got that exact same question at the beach party, which you unfortunately couldn't make it for. But yeah, the beach party, it's like we're all having fun, drinking and stuff, and someone comes up to me and say, "Hey, I gave this to Hayden, I'm gonna give it to you too, just in case." And I read it and I just died laughing. It was so good. Wait, what was the question again?
Well,
what's
the question? Yeah,
what should I do?
The question is, my co-host has started using terrible nicknames for cards. What should I do? And for the context, this is a reference to me getting very annoyed at cast homes as a use for visit the Goldman Estate. I was actually chatting to Aggro Blaze about this when we were playing our game, because I was saying, visit the Goldman Estate. That is the correct name for that card when we were playing in the last round of Calling Singapore. But anyway, what Pankaj, what should I do? What should I do?
You should adopt those names, obviously. That's the only logical conclusion.
Can I? Okay, so Base of the Mountain
is the only way forward, man.
Base of the Mountain is now Unmover Boots, so I'm calling it.
Unmover Boots. I could see it. Although a point of a nickname is typically to shorten the word, to like make it fewer syllables, typically. Which is why, you have Slippy, you have Mario.
Yeah.
You have Cast Homes. So Unmover Boots is still a lot.
Base of the Mountain.
Base
of the Mountain. It's such a mouthful. Unmover Boots. Done.
Yes, Unmover Boots is also quite a mouthful. It's like 4 syllables. Yeah, it's 4 syllables. You barely shortened it.
Yeah, well, 1 syllable.
Base of the Mountain's like 5.
Yeah, 1 syllable.
Yeah, okay.
Done.
Yeah, that's
done. All right. That was a great question, though. But our actual question for this week comes from our Spotify comment section on episode 222. First of all, we had a correction, and thank you for correcting us. This is from Snook14, who said Bucharest, not Budapest, when we called out where the world tour stop was for the Battle Hardened. They're pointing out Romania and Hungary are neighbours, but the two capitals are quite far away. Yes, very aware. I think we just got the wrong country. Actually, specifically, not even the wrong city, just literally the wrong. We just mixed them up where the event was. Yeah. So yes, Bucharest,
where Azalea allowed, right? That was the
correct,
one.
Correct. Yeah. And then our question...
Yeah, we messed up.
Yeah, we apologize on that one. And then the question for this week comes from Ben Amos, local of mine. Shout out to Yazi, as many people would know Ben as. When it comes to looking at best deck and format, a lot of people look at the standings of Pro Tours and larger events that include formats like Draft. Should the conversation change from best deck and format to best player in the room when we look at larger events for results? Pankaj, a great question off the back of Pro Tour Singapore.
Yeah. Shout out Benjamin for the question. I think I'm a little curious about should the conversation change part of it, because I do feel like both kind of already happen. Like I think about Pro Tour Amsterdam, for example. I don't think Uzuri was the best deck in format. In a sense, it was like it was a surgical angle into the format, but it wasn't like best deck in format when you talk about like power level and things like that, right? But there was definitely a massive conversation about Shoma being an absolute beast, and one of the best, if not the best player in the room. So I think that kind of already happens. I feel like they do go hand in hand. Like best deck in format during Amsterdam time was, I think, still like Zen, right? Like I think that was still kind of like best deck in format. So I do feel like both happen at the same time already. So I'm not entirely sure about should the conversation change from one to another.
I think it's interesting in TCGs. There is this thing that happens is like, okay, if a person with a name or a person with a particular narrative wins an event, often we remember that person or that narrative, right? And if it's defined by maybe the winning deck, for instance, then maybe, unfortunately that person gets a little bit overshadowed by the deck, for instance. So, and I think, I hope this doesn't happen for Shiru, but obviously, Gravy wins the event. I think there's been a lot of discourse around Gravy for sure. You want to make sure we're doing the right thing by the players, because to Ben's point, right, the player goes and expertly navigates Draft, chooses a deck, learns to pilot, learns to understand how to play that in a meta that's potentially full of people trying to attack you and put you on the back foot, and has to learn new strategies, be very well versed in it, then has to navigate a very tough top 8, for instance. So I think there's a relationship between obviously the best deck in the format at times and the best player in the room at the time, but also the best deck in the format, like to your point, doesn't always win the PT. And actually often this hasn't happened, right? Like was Ultim the best deck for Baltimore when Michael Fong won? I don't think anyone would, well, most people wouldn't say that was true, right? I think most people would say that was Lexi. Was Chain the best deck in the format when it won PT1? Most people would say that was Starvo, for instance. So I think, it's interesting, the relationship between potentially the best deck in the format, the winning deck, and then also the winner themselves. And I think we generally see more of a focus on just the way it plays out narratively, the focus more also on the player when it's not the best deck in the format that wins, or when they have a very particular narrative. For instance, yes, Enigma won Pro Tour London, but Pablo Pintor won a second Pro Tour. That narrative is insane, right? That narrative is always going to hold water. So I think that's kind of what I would say is, I think we've got to do... We have this sort of responsibility to make sure we focus on just the achievement of that player, because it is insane to win a Pro Tour. Yes, it requires a little bit of luck, but it requires a lot of preparation, a lot of understanding of a format, and a lot of skill. And oftentimes the conversation between the best deck in the format and the best player are very, very far removed and different.
Yeah, I do feel like we end up conversing about both things. Like I think like Shure, for example, was one of the best, if not the best player in the room at Pro Tour Singapore, but also Gravy was best deck in format. But like I do feel like, to your point, the conversations do end up being separate from each other. Like I think about Gregorsh, right? Worlds Osaka, one of the best players in the room on maybe the best deck in format at the time was a little bit debatable, but it was definitely if it's in that echelon of best deck in format. So it's right up there with like Dash.io, I think was the other.
I would say it's up there with the Dash.io that Sam Sutherland played, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, basically when High Octane was legal, Dash.io and CRB Enigma. It's like, whatever. It's in that echelon of best deck in format, but also Gregor's one of the best players in the room. And I'm not entirely sure if anything, like to your point when you're saying like, oh, sometimes the best deck in format conversation overshadows the conversation about best player. I don't think that really happened with Gregor's. I don't think that's really going to happen with like Shure as well, because Shure played freaking fantastic on stream, right? The guy was an absolute monster. on the deck.
I think it depends on what happens. So there's other aspects, right? Like, what are the games like? To your point, the finals game, right? Crazy finals game. So I think that's one to remember, right? Gregor's finals, maybe a little bit less memorable, right? And so I think, there's these other aspects that'll play into it as well around just the narrative of these players. And also, I think naturally we sort of champion players as well. And I think, for instance, Michael Fung winning on Ultim, it's like, that was Michael's PT, right? Like, the story of Michael not feeling confident coming into it, lending his Lexi deck to Brody Spurlock and playing Ultim and ended up winning this PT. There's other things around it. That's not just the player. It's not just the deck. It's like these narrative conversations as well. I mean, Arthur Trehay winning on Dromai and in that fashion, right? Like, just that game is going to forever be remembered. So, yeah, I think... I think we should make sure we're doing a service of talking to the best player in the room. But also what I would say is that sometimes the best player in the room does not win that event, right? The person who maybe had the best preparation, chose the right deck, they maybe had the best preparation. They've set themselves up to be the best player on that weekend, and a couple of things don't go their way because you do need luck to fall your way, things to break well for you to win a Pro Tour. So,
And I was just reminded as we were talking about that, like freaking Michael Hamilton, right? I mean, Icelander and Worlds that was Worlds 1, probably best deck in format, but also I feel like the conversation has kind of always been, it's freaking Michael Hamilton. Yeah. So I do feel like we already do quite a bit of the elevating the player and giving the player the due credit, even when we're talking about potential best deck in format that maybe needs a hit or something.
I think we do it for some players. I think we do it for some players. I think we do a better job of doing it for a wider group of players, is what I would say. But.
Fair. Also, side note, I do love that we have a whole wealth of like tier 4 events to talk about now.
I know,
it's
right?
It's like a few years ago we'd be like, oh yeah, we have we have Lille to talk about and New Jersey, like that's it. And now we have this whole like slew of like events to draw on and like the separate narratives that they each had, which I think is just really, really awesome. I'm loving the growth of the game.
We're going to crown a 4th world champion this year in this game. That is crazy.
That is so cool.
This will be our 4th world championship. This was our 9th?
I don't even remember. 7th, 8th PT? I don't know.
8th PT. No, 9th PT, I think. 9th PT. Because it was 1 for 1 year. So 8th PT, I guess. Yeah. 7th or 8th. Yeah, which is insane. Plus world championships.
Well, yeah, it should be 7th, right?
Yeah. 2 in the first year. 1,
and then
2,
1 in the
2.
Second. And then
so
2.
7. Yeah. So... Great question. I think lots of food for thought. I mean, Pankaj knows this. I'm very passionate about narratives of events and players when it comes to Tier 4 events. And it's the thing that I think Sam and Ethan and the team have been doing such a great job. And of course, yourself, Pankaj, and everyone involved in the production have been doing such a great job of just continuing to push forward what the narratives look like at these events with I love the interviews between rounds. I love the setting the stage of these players, following teams, all these different things. Has been very, very cool. So, yeah, I think it's only going to go onwards and upwards of talking about these best players in the room, for sure.
Yeah, and it's so great to even draw off of their previous tournaments. Something we were doing in Singapore was when we had those team screens, teams to follow, we were also looking at those team results at London. So before going into how they're doing at Singapore, we'd pull up the slide for what we had in London, be like, this is how they're doing in London. Let's see how they're doing in Singapore this time. And you just get to keep the narrative flowing and really build up the stardom of the players, which... Yeah, I'm just going to... Echoing your point, basically, I do love that we're bringing that to coverage, and I think it's offered... It's doing a lot for the players.
Well... Get your questions in for the Command & Cookout. Like I say, lots of different avenues to do that. Let's move on to the main topic of the pod and talk about Guardian Mastery Pack. And Pankaj, I think you want to start with first impressions. Obviously, just to set the stage a little bit, this is we had the announcement back in last year. When was the announcement? It was so long ago now.
I think it had to be last year because at some point they also announced that they were pushing it back, right? Because this was supposed to come out in March or something.
Yeah.
It was supposed to come out earlier this year, and then they pushed it back to now. So I'm guessing, the announcement must have been last year. I feel like it almost certainly was Worlds, if not before that.
I think was it not LA? No, it can't have been.
It could. No.
Must have been Worlds. Must have been Worlds. And I wasn't at Amsterdam.
Was that a Worlds or PT2?
So
yeah, it was either Amsterdam or Worlds. Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, we had this set announced last year. We've had bits and pieces of what we expected to see. Once we got to Pro Tour London, we had the keynote speech, of course, from James White, and we saw a bunch of things that would be happening with the set, a bit more information about it, some of these crazy, massive, Guardian ancient cards that we would see. And then we've got into the preview week this past week, seen another, a bunch of cards, learning more about the set, and then, of course, we will be with Guardian Pack Mastery in just a week's time, which is so soon. It's finally here, rather.
I like how you started this pod saying you called it Mastery Pack Guardian, and just now you're like Guardian Pack Mastery. It's just the 3 words. Put them in whatever order you want.
Oh my gosh.
Mastery Guardian Pack even. I want to start with perhaps early predictions or early thoughts on what this set would be for a lot of people, including myself. I think a lot of people expected this to be a little bit of a level up for Guardians, like a bunch of tools that Guardians could get to help them with their position in the meta, which is that they're not in the meta, so to bring them in, which means helping them with their terrible matchups that they kind of like never had a chance of winning, right? And now that we've seen some of the cards, I realized I feel like we should have seen this card. Spoiler, it isn't quite that, at least from what we have seen so far. There's obviously a bunch of cards we haven't seen, so spoiler, it isn't that, and I feel like we should have seen that coming, particularly because of the crack shuffle play part of it. When that was announced, that this set is meant to be compatible with crack shuffle play, that immediately means you can't really have a bunch of cards that is going to be like wizard hate for Guardians. Because how are you going to crack shuffle play and then you have this card that's only good against wizards, right? It doesn't quite really make sense. So now looking back at it, I'm like, the moment they said crack shuffle play, we should have maybe realized this is more, this maybe isn't quite what people were hoping for. I just want to start with that overall sentiment on the side. I do wonder with the crack shuffle play aspect of it, because they want to push that, maybe that is limited them to some extent to giving Guardian the extra tools that they might need for like the illusionists and the wizards and the necromancers. Or maybe that was just like, maybe we just had the wrong impression to begin with and was never meant to be like hey, here's a massive upgrade for Guardians and get them into the meta. It was always just meant to be maybe more of an, I don't even want to call it an introductory product really, but maybe it's just always supposed to be a crack shuffle play product, like a Bright Lights that isn't a draftable set but is around Guardians.
I've always been I've been interested in what we're going to see from this, and I think even now I still don't feel, to your point about like the level up, the specific nature of what these would do, as opposed to just a kind of new angle and raising what Guardian could look like. I'm still not sure that, to your point, that is exactly what's going to happen. Like, we've definitely seen some new potential archetypes, right? We've seen more leaning into Clash, we've seen some new Crush cards, we've seen more of the same in some ways, and then we have seen like this mill aspect as well, which we'll get into, right? So we've seen, of course, we know Velda, we've known for a long time Velda's going to be a part of the set. We've seen some Velda specializations and cards specific to Velda, but so you think we're not going to see any kind of specific angles at all for these heroes into other heroes necessarily? So actually the mill part of it I think is quite interesting. Okay, so I do want to shout out that I do like that they're sort of introducing a new archetype completely. I think it would be pretty not very flavorfully satisfying if they were just like, hey Guardian, okay, you're struggling with Wizard and Illusionist, have more go again, and that's your solution. Because I mean that kind of is why they struggle, right? They struggle with like the offensive output to overcome those decks. So then there's like, here's have more Rouse the Ancients and more whatever, and then suddenly Guardian just feels like a different flavor of Brute almost, where it's just like, hey, they have action points and the big attacks. So I do like that they're going with a different, like here's a different fully like archetype, a new thing that is Guardian specific. Kind of Assassin is ish, like has mill-ish features, but it seems like Guardian's leaning harder into it, whereas Assassin is more of a splash and Guardian's more like, cool, you have a mill, you are the mill class if someone wants to play mill. Maybe it solves the wizard matchup. Like maybe now they actually have a sequence of draws where they can actually mill out like the wizard or the illusionist, for example. Like maybe we'll have to see. I'm skeptical.
in terms of that impact. But I do like there's an extra archetype. This comes back to the purpose of the set in a sense. Like, what is this solving for Guardian, right? If like they're already good into like the ninjas, for example. Like which deck are they going to use this mill strategy against that they weren't already winning beforehand? And if they weren't winning beforehand, if they were losing that matchup, is this mill thing actually winning them that matchup? Like, is I guess my question.
Okay.
While I do like that there's a whole new archetype being introduced and Guardians getting their niche, which I do feel like for a while they were maybe a little bit lacking. Like, they used to be the disruptive deck, and then Assassin came along, and Assassin is just like the better disruptive deck.
Yeah.
So I do like that they're getting their own niche. I'm just curious where that lands into everything.
So just before we go into that, I would love to dive into that. Just going back to, I guess, that previous part and kind of the question I guess I was somewhat asking poorly. Do you think that we could have cards that, say, have Spell Void on them, but also do something else? So they're still relevant for Crack Shuffle play, but then, for instance, had a Spell Void element to them? Or you just think they're just staying... I mean, we haven't seen anything like that so far, right? So signs point to no, but do you just think they're just going to completely stay away from that?
So actually, there is one counterpoint, and that's Clash of Bravado, which is a card that... Oh, actually, no, that actually works against Guardians very well, too. Never mind, I take that back. There's a counterpoint. The Spell Void thing, the thing is... This is weird. I feel like I'm sort of dodging a question over here, because I think the Spell Void thing, they have mentioned in the past before. They obviously care a lot about flavor. And like, people have asked them, why doesn't Warrior have like an Arcane Barrier equipment piece? Or like a Spell Void equipment piece? And the answer, if I remember correctly, was along the lines of, that's like, Warriors are meant to be weak to Arcane. That is like part of the flavor of the class, where you're meant to be weak to this. And I feel like Guardian getting a Spell Void anything or Arcane Barrier anything is in that same vein, where they view it as, no, this is like your heavy hitters type class, and they are weak to magic. That is just what the class is. So I think to them it might, in a sense, break the color pie or break the flavor too much. Which is dodging your question, because your question is more along the lines of, do you think it's sort of dodging your question? But yeah. No,
because I do think that, we can look at a card like Break Stature, which references aura tokens, right? So yes, it has relevancy against Seismic Surge, for instance, right, in this set. So very, very specific to the set as well. But also has a crush effect that would destroy other aura tokens potentially, that could be out there to benefit, like a Quicken token or these other sorts of
Rune Chants.
Yeah, Rune Chants, etc. Right? So there is a little bit of that, but it's going to be, I think what we're getting to effectively between us is that it's going to be very specific still to Guardian, and if there's any overlap of it hitting non-Guardian stuff, it's going to be because it still has a specific place in the set in terms of what it does. It won't be like it does one thing, but it also does another very specifically additionally. It's going to be, no, it does this very specific thing, but that it does this one thing. That one thing can be very broad in terms of who it can impact, and can have some overlap between not just Seismic Surge tokens, but for instance, Rune Chants, like you say, or other tokens.
But in that breath, Guardian has to be included. At least so far, we haven't seen a single card that isn't relevant against an opposing Guardian. For example, like, I guess to answer your question more specifically now, I don't think we're going to see a card that like interacts with items, for example. Because Guardians, at least so far, we haven't seen Guardians caring about items at all, so I don't think we're going to see a hate card, if you will.
It wouldn't make sense, right?
That interacts with items. And it doesn't make sense partly because it's Crack Shuffle play, right? Like you Crack Shuffle played this item hate card, and your opponent's another Guardian who has no items. You're like, what is this card doing? So yeah, I don't think we're going to see that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see stuff if it overlaps, to your point. So we are not I don't think we're seeing something like Spell Void or Arcane Barrier, because it doesn't actually have that overlap, right?
Yeah. And to bring up Break Stature again, I've just put it up on the screen as well for our video watchers, but for our audio listeners, this is a Majestic at yellow, defends for 3, cost 8 is of course Guardian action attack. It says Crush. When this deals 4 or more damage to a hero, destroy an aura token they control. They can't create auras with that token's name until the end of their next turn. So, for instance, to your point, great against Rune Chants, for example. You look like you're shaking your head about it though.
Yeah, it's going against Seismic Surge as well. No, I'm shaking my head not about it specifically, because I'm confused. Because there is a rare card in the same set that feels like it's just better than that. And that is Renounce Grandeur. So I'll read out the red version of Renown's Guardian. Actually, I don't even know if it comes in multiple pitches, but the red one is a 3-cost Guardian action attack that attacks for 7, blocks for 3. And it says, if the defending hero controls an aura token, this gets +1. So it'll be 8. It'll be a 3 for 8 if they have an aura token. And this has Crush. When this deals 4 more damage to a hero, they can't create aura tokens during the next turn. So I'm like, there's a very, very narrow use case where Break Stature is better than this, and that's if you specifically want to destroy one aura token. But most of the time, Renown's Guardian, if they're controlling aura token, Renown's Guardian is a 3 for 8, and Break Stature is a 5 for 8. And they have the same crush effect. Actually, Break Stature is a more niche crush than Renown's Grandeur. Renown's Grandeur stops them from making any aura tokens. And Renown's Grandeur only stops them from making the aura token of the name that you destroyed. So when I was shaking my head, I was just confused. I was expressing my confusion. Not that I think... we put it next to Renown's Grandeur. So I'm just like, why would I play Break Stature over Renown's Grandeur? Unless I'm playing both, but I don't know whether... I think you have better cards at that point, so I'm just
I think probably because it's yellow, it has 8 attack. And destroying the token could so the value's built in, I think, of destroying the token in terms of the payoff, right? If it's worth 1, so you get the additional value. But it's, I think, specifically to your point, like if you need to destroy something that's worth more than 1 value, then all of a sudden Break Stature becomes a lot more valuable. But I don't disagree.
Yeah,
the effect is definitely stronger. It's just maybe not going to be as relevant in most bids.
Yeah, it costs 2 more. The thing is, it costs 2 more resources, and it has the same attack value. So it's kind of like, is it that much stronger?
And it has 1 different. Break Stature is 8, and Renowned Grandeur is 7. Oh, I see what you're saying, but if it...
yes.
Yeah, sure. I guess +1 if they can...
In the event that Break Stature has a relevant effect, Renowned Grandeur would be 8.
Sure.
So it's 2 resources more for its effect. And then, so at that point... And I think maybe perhaps where we are possibly missing a piece of the puzzle here. So we're probably thinking in the form of blowing up a rune chant or something like that. So you're like, okay, Renowned Grandeur is just better. But if you're thinking about, say, blowing up a confidence token, then you probably want Break Stature. Like to your point about if the aura token is worth more than 1.
Yeah, if it's going to have a relevant effect.
Yeah, and like maybe confidence token is in that realm because it can stop them from giving their thing, their extra turn card effectively dominate or whatever. I don't know. So far, it feels like Renowned Grandeur just feels like the better version of Break Stature. So, which is why I was confused.
Before we start getting deeper down the well of very specific cards in the set, perhaps we should talk a little bit more just about the top level and maybe sentiment on the set. And I'm happy to kick it off. I think for me, it's so interesting. The set has been so long in coming, right? It's just been on the horizon for so long, and it's finally here next week, which is, at one point it felt like we're never going to get this set. I think... it has these sort of feelings of some... We got rid of expansion sets, right? These supplemental sets a couple of years ago now, I believe. Dusk Till Dawn or Dynasty. Dusk Till Dawn was after Dynasty. So Dusk Till Dawn was the last supplemental set we had. And I think, they kind of lost their way in terms of the impact on the format. They went from, I think, Everfest. Wow, what an amazing first supplemental set, right? Or Crucible of War, actually, and then Everfest. These amazing supplemental sets, and then of course, you go to Dynasty, and it feels like it has some impact. Introduces Assassin, very very cool. Dusk Till Dawn, I think, maybe fell a little bit flat in the grand scheme of things when you canvas perhaps how Flesh and Blood players felt out there, and ultimately, we see that go away a couple of years ago, and we have these sets that are all draftable. I think the focus on Limited has maybe shifted again for LSS. We've had other products come into, Armory decks, of course, which I think have been great as well. And then now we finally have this almost new version of the supplemental set, which is the Mastery Packs, and this one is Guardian, revisiting some old cards, some old favorites, but introducing new cards, introducing with crack shuffle play as well into this aspect as well. So it has some familiar feelings, but also potentially has some new feelings of almost this kind of crossover of a supplemental set and a history pack almost in some ways, right? But still introducing new heroes or new versions of heroes anyway. And I think that's kind of, to me, that's what it is. It's a product that is... It's here, and it might have some... We'll talk about this. Will it have impact on the constructed format? It may have some impact on constructed. it'll probably be something very exciting for Guardian players who very much identify with Guardian. And Guardians haven't had a lot in recent years. Victor and, well, we're not going to call Betsy as one of the call-outs, are we? But Victor and a little bit of Jarl in recent years, and now you have this mastery set. But for, I think, the average player, a lot of this might feel kind of just so of like, oh, okay, it's almost like a supplemental set in some ways, and I think that's quite interesting. And I don't know how much of that is because we've just been anticipating this for so long versus how much of this is because it is the specific product that it is.
For me, part of it stems from seeing the spoilers and just not being very whelmed, if you will, from the spoilers. It feels like bright lights. In that sense, so it's like, okay, this is Bright Lights, but it's Guardian coded and it's not draftable. So it's like if they made Bright Lights a supplemental set, and then they also changed it to Guardian, it's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, where it's like the power level doesn't, at least so far, doesn't seem to quite be there. I agree. But it is like supplemental set-esque in the sense of introducing like new archetypes. Like Dynasty, for example, introduced the whole shield. I mean, Dynasty was basically new archetypes for freaking every class, right? It was like, here's Surge for wizards, and then here's Tigers for ninjas, and then here's offhand shield stuff for guardians, here's aim counters for rangers. It basically just did that. And this kind of feels like this is doing that for Guardian too. It's like, here's your mill archetype, here's the support for the offhand archetype that we established earlier on in Dynasty. So, yeah, it's like in that realm. But then you mentioned Guardian players would be excited.
Oh, maybe
and I kind of want to, I kind of want to push back on that. I'm just like, will they? Like if I told you the class you play is getting like a Dynasty or Bright Lights level set, are you like supplemental set just for them? Are you going to be like, oh, yay, I'm excited? Like I guess what I'm getting at is, if we don't see more like strong cards, like more cards that can actually bring Guardian into the format, like who is this product for? Because like you say Guardian players, I'm like, who is a Guardian player like anymore?
Wow. I mean, neither of us are Guardian players.
I'm not trying to be like facetious here, but I'm like genuinely asking. Like,
neither of us are Guardian players, right? I think that's one thing we should point out immediately. We might.
I guess we brought up the other Hayden, Hayden Jensen, like earlier on. I guess he is a Guardian player for sure. But
well, if you're a Guardian player, let us know in the comments what you think so far from these preview cards. One thing I will say though, I think what I want to parallel this to is you spoke about Dynasty. And at the time when Dynasty came out, in some ways, felt very underwhelming. What I would say about Dynasty, though, is Dynasty set up the future for a lot of these classes. So you spoke about Tigers, for instance. We then get to part the Misveil, and you have cards that then become relevant once Tigers become a more important part of an archetype and a hero that has an identity with Tigers. You get to Outsiders, for instance, right? And aim counters alongside Azalea and Riptide start to have more of an identity once that set comes in. And yes, this is a solo set, so it feels a little bit different of like, shouldn't that just all happen at one go? But I think what this is doing is it's definitely giving some upgrades in some ways to existing Guardian heroes. We're going to get a new Guardian hero, which, hey, we haven't seen every card yet, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what impact Valda might have. Of course, we saw Pulping, of course, as a card that was a promo card during the ProQuest season. I think it's a very powerful card. There's still more cards to come, and I think there might be some really integral cards that formulate upgrades or at least new archetypes, like you say. And then I think we'll see how that integrates. I wouldn't be surprised then we get down the road and the next set has a Guardian in it that is very much tied to maybe one of these aspects of Clash or milling that becomes this really true identity. And all of a sudden you go, wow, a lot of these cards are actually really relevant. They couldn't print them in the base set because it would have been too warping to limited, for instance. So they've printed them here, and now you get this hero afterwards that has a real impact. And I think that's a lot of what Dynasty did, is it sort of introduced things. It gave these key role players or pieces that then became integral parts of decks later in formats once those heroes got released, or those sets that revolved around those mechanics and archetypes came to fruition and were released to us.
Quick clarification there. I think Hayden meant batter to a pulp, not pulping. But yes,
I said pulping.
The point still. Yeah, you said pulping. But yeah, the point still stands. I love that you brought up Valda, because I think that's perhaps where we can move this conversation on to next. In terms of Guardians that could potentially have a meta impact, like next season or like, after this release, I do feel like Valda is something to be looked at, right? Like, So obviously currently in the meta, Big Bad is Gravy, and he draws lots of cards, and Valda will punish you for drawing lots of cards. So it feels like and we look at that, like her dominate mechanic alongside some of this mill stuff, where it does feel like Guardian's best chance in Gravy these days is fatiguing. Like that's a best chance. It's not a good chance, but it's a best chance because you can't race the Gravy as a Guardian. So if you think about that aspect of it, and suddenly you're like this Valda who has dominate on a whole bunch of mill stuff, maybe that is actually something that could have impact into the meta. I don't know. What are your thoughts on initial Valda impressions, if you will, or potential meta impact?
Yeah, I think what I'm interested in is where do cards start to get value from a single Seismic Surge token, right? Like where does a single Seismic Surge token from an opponent drawing a card on their turn actually have really big impact? And then where can... Because I think there's obviously the secondary text on Valda, which is at the start of your turn, if you have 3 or more Seismic Surge tokens, cards you own with Crush get dominate. I think that's obviously very relevant. But what I'm more looking for is like how can I get a lot of value out of Valda? Like how can that one Seismic Surge that I might get from my opponent drawing a card off their Golden Tipple, for instance, or off their hero ability, give me an extra value to cast my 4 cost off of 2 cards, for instance. I pitch my blue, I use my Seismic Surge token, and I come in with this effect, and then I pummel it, or whatever it might be. How can I use big 5-card hands to be like, okay, I have my Rouse the Ancients, and then I play my Spinal Crush afterwards off of my other blue that I have and I arsenal my last card, for instance. Like these are the sort of things I'm looking at to Valda. And I do think Valda, with potentially just a few upgrades from the set, could be very, very good. So yeah, the last thing though I think that I'm looking for that we haven't seen yet is almost a pummel like card, right? It's a card that can have some interaction that isn't an attack action. And I know we have auras, right? We have these auras. I think it could be an aura. I'm fine for it to be an aura, but this is the kind of thing I'm looking for, is some sort of like other interaction that gives something or pushes something over the top. A Tear Asunder like card, for instance.
So I will say when you mentioned that, I was like, the card that came to mind to me is Test of Iron Grip. It feels like it's in that category that you're potentially talking about. I'll just read out the card. Test of Iron Grip is a Guardian block card. Comes in red, blocks for 4. It's a Majestic. And it says, when this defends, clash with the attacking hero. If there is a winner, the other hero discards a card. So is that Pummel-esque? Like when you're talking about a Pummel-esque card, is that in that realm for you, or not quite what you were trying to get at?
It's probably a little bit defensive for me. I think the card, don't get me wrong, I think the card is good, but I think, it's defensive. There are ways to potentially play around this card. For instance, it's like, well, I make sure that I play out my cards in a way that if this card is in my opponent's hand, either I don't get affected by it because I've already been able to play around it, or if I do, the impact is kind of minimal, for instance. But yeah. It is good. Don't get me wrong. I think this card is fairly good. I'm looking for something on the offense. I'm looking for something more Tear Asunder like, I think, is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I could see that, because I was also a little bit confused when I read this card. But it just came down to, what is this solving for Guardian? Because I'm like, I look at this and I'm like, okay, you know what this is really good at? Good against? It's good against a deck that wants to go wide on you.
Yeah.
But you're a Guardian. You're already good into Ninja. So it's kind of like, I guess it's also good into something that wants to attack reaction you. So like into Assassins, it's good. But you're also, you can build a Guardian deck to be good into Assassin as well. Like you have Staunch Response, you have massive armor suite. So again, I'm just like, I look at this, I'm like, I'm not seeing the massive upgrade into like matchups you actually need upgrades for. But I could see it being fine into Gravy, to be honest, because they do need like tipples as like part of the engine. But yeah, to your point, they also will have a whole bunch of turns where it's just like Chart the High Seas, Call to the Grave, ally, and then your Test of Iron Grip is just a block 4.
Yep.
And it's not giving you your offensive output that you need it to be. So yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, maybe they just needed one of those offensively disruptive cards as we were talking about. That's not just an attack.
Yeah, because I think like a card, like we might just move on and talk about a card like Pick Perfect, right? Which is this Guardian attack action at Majestic. It's a 5-cost red, 9 attack, 3 defense. When a card defends this, clash with the defending hero, the winner destroys the top card of the other hero's deck. You speak about this idea of having really proactive strategies. well, if the opponent doesn't block this, destroying the top card of the deck or having this kind of mill aspect, just it doesn't exist, right? So I think a card like this to me is not whelming at all, to use your words, right? But I think I'm more interested in these cards that have an impact that's tied to not what my opponent's doing, but to what I'm doing specifically. So
that's really interesting that you brought up Pact Perfect, because to me, this was the one where I'm like, this could potentially be the one that actually solves the matchups that Guardian needs help for. Okay, solves is probably too strong of a term. Can help Guardian in the matchups that it needs help in.
Go on.
Which is Wizard and Illusionist. Because I think what Guardian needs to do in those matchups is put the other hero on a clock, right? Like, so put the other hero on a clock and also kind of threaten fatigue. Like, a Guardian way of solving the matchup would be like, hey, I'm going to like try and fatigue you / also put you on the clock. And I feel like this card kind of does both. You can't, like, how do I say it? If you're gonna put like the rouses and everything and put this mill package in, you're like threatening hitting them really hard. But if they take too long, you could threaten fatiguing them. And this card lets you do that, right? Like, when the wizard wants to like just set up their potions, they want to block you, but then if they block this, they are getting milled faster.
Yeah.
And then if they don't block this, they're eating 9 to the face, which is advancing your rush at them game plan too. So I was like, oh, maybe there's promise in this card actually for the matchups you need help. And it's obviously nothing against the ninjas, but you don't need help there. Like that's kind of not what Guardian players looking for, right? But in this matchup, like, I'm like looking at the Verdance wants to block out and play a healing potion, and they mill 3 cards from the deck for it, or they don't and they take 9 to the face, and then you also like CNC pummeling and doing other stuff the rest of the game. So I don't know. This is the one where I'm like, ooh, I wonder if this has promise. It does, however, anti-synergy with Dominate, obviously, which is kind of funny.
It does.
But,
It definitely does. I at the very least, I think it's interesting whether it becomes, I have question marks over whether 1 to 3 cards is going to be relevant enough, right? Because you obviously get to do this 3 times.
It would be alongside another mill package, right?
Sure.
It wouldn't be the only.
I just mean on one
card
though. Yeah. Like on one card, is this card powerful? Like for an archetype like that to be good, you do need some cards that particularly push it, right? And I don't think we've seen any cards in particular that push it over the top at this stage. It all just looks fairly sort of pedestrian at this point, right? Fairly like, oh, this could be a thing. This might be viable. Nothing where you're like, right, this is the centerpiece. This is what I'm super excited about. But I think to your point, what it speaks more to, I think, is this idea of almost doing 2 jobs. Like, it's like, hey, here's some damage that threatens to, I'm going to take you on 2 axes, as opposed to just have this one particular route to victory of being purely mill, right? Fatigue by damage.
Exactly.
It helps you fatigue by damage as well.
Exactly. Like it threatens on both axes, which I think is
it makes sense.
Very, very,
it makes sense.
Which is a very interesting design. Also, it is interesting to note, this is the first time we're seeing clash on offense, in some sense. And the clash is still only being triggered on defense, but it's like you're offensively putting clash in your cards. It's kind of the first time we're seeing this, which I think is also interesting design space.
Yep, agree. Do you want to talk about? Probably the other card. Any other Guardian specific cards you want to talk about? Actually,
yeah, but actually before that, we sort of segued into this from talking about Valda. I just want to jump back to that part of it and be like, did we have any closing thoughts on Valda's potential meta relevance, or do we think the conversation is done?
I honestly just
anything else.
I think my closing remarks just in general on Valda and the set is I'm a wait and see what we'll get next week. I think I would be pleasantly surprised if the Mastery Pack, the Guardian Mastery Pack, has a significant impact on this format. I think more likely what my expectation is that Valda is like a tier 2.5 playable hero potentially, or either or Victor or Yao get 1 or 2 cards that are a significant enough upgrade to give them a little bump, or lastly, one of the Guardians has an interesting approach that we haven't seen before that's quite cool, that is maybe also in that tier 2 range. That is my expectations. Anything beyond that right now, I think I'd be very pleasantly surprised about, and I think we can re-review this next week or the following week once we've seen the full set.
I'm in a similar boat as you. I'm not expecting Guardian to be relevant in the meta from this set. I think Valda, Victor, and Jarl, and I mean obviously Betsy, but like whatever. The 3 Guardians that kind of matter. I don't expect them to from this set like have a splash in the meta, with one asterisk, one caveat being is we do need to see how this mill archetype plays out. And I do wonder if there's this like mill Valda archetype thing that maybe can actually have a place in the meta. Like that's the only thing where I'm like, okay, this is if you told me, hey, this set had impact, I would be like, my first guess would be, okay, there's like this mill Guardian archetype that's actually strong that came out from this set. Otherwise, I'm not really expecting too much of a Guardian presence still from this set.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, so I guess let's go ahead and talk about some spoilers. There is, I think, so Clash of Bravado, we touched on it. I think it's interesting to bring up because that's one of those cards that does have broad applications, including Guardian. But I think it's more exciting into Illusionist, right? Clash of Bravado is a 4-cost Guardian action attack that comes in yellow and attacks for 7, blocks for 3. It says, when this defense clash with the attacking hero, the winner destroys an aura the other hero controls. Yeah.
I mean, interesting card. Definitely relevant in the crack shuffle play element, relevant in the Guardian seismic surge mirrors. I think what's going to be...
Oh, even aura, like Pleiades or something, right? You actually blow up like a relevant aura.
Yep, Pleiades. I think as well, the fact that this is just an aura they control, it's not a cost structure, it's not a non-token structure. Of course, this means that you could blow up Illusionist auras, for instance. I think this card is probably... I don't think this card's going to have a big impact, honestly. I think this card it's probably just not going to be relevant enough, but there could be a time where there's a particular aura that's doing rounds that's quite impactful, and this card becomes very important for Guardians. I think it's more where I'm seeing this card right now.
Yeah, I'm just like thinking about it. If this, like, say this was around when Enigma was in the format, right? Would this have changed the Guardian matchup for Enigma?
It'd be relevant.
Maybe. I don't. It'll be relevant, but yeah, again, it feels like maybe it brings up from like 20% to 30% or something.
Sure,
like
sure. Yeah, I don't think it's not swings, but that's the thing I think LSS also want to do is they don't want to be swinging things with silver bullet cards. They want to be able to allow you to create strategies and build into strategies where it's like, oh, traditionally this matchup is a 20%er for this hero, but actually if you build in this particular way where you do have to sacrifice things into other heroes, you can get this matchup too. A 50-50 match. You can build in certain ways to play the hero or the class that you love, but into the field that you're expecting.
Yeah. So that's Clash of Bravado. I think the other one that's interesting to talk about is the Valda specialization. Put them in their place. This is 6-cost Guardian action attack Valda spec though, so only Valda can play it. Attacks for 10, blocks for 3, and says, Crush. When this deals 4 more damage to a hero, they discard their hand, then they draw that many cards. Which is super interesting. I think one thing when I was thinking about like Valda, and like why I'm still hesitant on her having massive impact, because I do feel like she has a bit of this like she still needs her opponents to draw cards to have a powerful turn. But generally, her powerful turns will stop her opponent from drawing cards, and then she's like say she gets to dominate a Spinal, right? And she gets to block a bunch. Her opponent's had a strong turn, but she had made all these surges because they drew a bunch of cards. So she gets to block down to a small hand and still send a dominate the Spinal, and it looks awesome. And the opponent gets crushed, and then now they're crushed, so they're not drawing any cards. And then go back to Valda's like 5-card hand, and you're kind of like, okay, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So this feels like one of those cards that kind of helps you on that, where it's like weird disruption, where they don't get to plan their turn, they don't get to plan their blocks effectively, but it also remakes you a bunch of surges because they're drawing back up, so you can continue this cycle. So that's the thing that makes me curious about this card, because otherwise the Valda play pattern to me has some anti-synergy built in, where when she's doing a strong thing, she doesn't get to do a strong thing again the following turn because their opponent didn't draw cards. Yeah,
and I agree, I massively agree. I think that's where I'm really interested in those like kind of offensive support cards where I'm like, right, you come back with like, you do this, maybe you put them in their place and you do get to drop another hand, and then it's like, okay, I've completely disrupted their whole turn. Now what am I doing? Okay, I've used my put them in place. What's next? And it's like, oh, here's a big Terra Thunder turn or something, or like here's another X turn or something. So I do agree. I think it's this card in combinations with other cards that are going to be interesting. I mean, this card does cost 6. It's not cheap, right? But to your point, I think it's a great follow up to already having Seismic Surge tokens.
Yeah, I think to your point about the Terra Thunder type stuff, I think we also just need to see better blues in Guardian as well, right? I think we've been seeing a trend between like previous strong decks, and we've talked about this a lot, obviously, where they're blue-based decks where the blues are playable, whereas Guardian is definitely such a blue-based deck where it wants like 30 plus blues, but it has so few blues that you're actually happy to cast, like your Terra Thunder or whatever, but then when you're like, oh, here's a blue disable or something, it's just like, bruh, that's just not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think there's been times where Guardian has had very strong blues, but they've been talented Guardians, right? So yeah, it'd be nice to see a way that we can help them out a little bit potentially. Why don't we go on to our last preview card that we want to speak about?
Yes, Fearless Confrontation. This one is a generic action attack. Cost 3, comes in blue, attacks for 5 and blocks for 3. Blocks for 3, that's important because it's a generic tech card. It says instant, discard this. Target attack gets -1 power and loses and can't gain dominate. So one of those things where, again, okay, crack shuffle play against the Guardian, the Valda dominated something at you, you can remove its dominate, spending a whole card for it, and giving it -1 so you can block a bit more, etc. But I think the scariest thing about this card is its application in Gravy Bones, because they're like, okay, I'm going to CNC your chum, and you discard this as gravy, and you win the game on the spot. It kind of feels like. Question is, I don't know if they're going to be able to fit this in their deck, because their blue base is tight and quite contested, but it does feel like, I don't know, you maybe give up a blue Swiftwater Slough for this or something, and you just have this high roll where they try and kill your chum, and you just don't let them kill your chum, and then it feels like game's kind of over. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this card?
I'm probably pretty happy my gravy opponents are playing this card. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of one card ones personally. It does have some specific application. Don't get me wrong. And like the interaction you have with particular cards, but losing dominate, just in general, if I'm just looking at this card on face value, taking away dominate, -1 attack, it's not how I want to be. I'd rather just take the dominate to the face and be playing a better deck overall.
Yeah, I agree. Like that, I think that part of it, I think it maybe could have had relevance if Azalea was still around. I think part of the reason, part of the reason Azalea could like play into like Earth decks, for example, is because you rely on a dominate so much, and suddenly Earth decks put this in, then suddenly Azalea probably like always got fatigue. So I think in that sort of meta, it could have been relevant. And currently, I don't see this being relevant. I'm like with you on that. Like I don't want to use a whole card to get around dominate unless I'm executing like some sort of fatigue strategy into a deck that dominates me. But I think the Gravy Bones application, like that's not a 1-card 1 anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's a 1-card I made you skip your turn.
Yeah.
Because you didn't kill my ally that you thought you were going to kill. So that is the one. Yeah, that's the part that kind of scares me about this card in terms of its current relevance. Nothing to do with this set.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? I mean, we'll see a lot more of this Guardian Mastery pack over the next week. Of course, it releases a week from this pod dropping next Friday, the 8th of August. Yes, the 8th of August it does drop. And of course, we have 2 callings, Classic Constructor callings that weekend for which is legal for. So interested to see if we'll see an immediate impact. I mean, we also don't know all the cards yet, so that's also keeping an eye out for that one. I assume we'll see some more generic cards. Very exciting, but yeah, I don't know. Pankaj, anything else to add before we clock out for the show?
Yeah, I guess my overall sentiment on the set, I'd be, how do I say it? I'd be down if this set had impact, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
In terms of like whether it actually will have impact.
Yeah, whether it has.
I'm not expecting it to.
Yeah.
But it'll be cool if it did.
I'm expecting it to do some things for Guardian and to put some things into place. I'm not expecting it to have a meta shifting impact necessarily, but I also could see this setting up things for the future. So yeah, we'll know more next week, that's for sure. Perfect. Cool. That has been episode 224 of Arsenal Pass. Thank you to the Arsenal Pass patrons, and until next episode, we'll see you next time.